Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable dear examiners and supervisors. So here I would like to present my research proposal. Here my focus of my study is a phenomenology case study of dialogical thesis supervisions. I collect the data from voices of pre-service English teachers and teacher educators. All right, in this presentation, I would like to divide my main talk into research background, followed by research questions, review of related literature, and research methods. Before I give a detailed explanation of my presentation, let me quote this Mikhail Bakhtin's most popular dialogism statement. He stated that the truth is not created by a single person, but it is created between the people through a construction or the process of their dialectic interaction. Based on this quote, I, as a lecturer, see that the dialogue is used as social practices in the classroom, and the lecturer and the students have a dialogic learning where the teacher transforms the knowledge into a more dialogical way to the students. So in this kind of shared understanding interaction, the knowledge will be constructed to the students, and a part of knowledge constructed to the students, there is also psychological response. All right. As I have explained before, in dialogic interaction in the classroom between lecturer and the students, research trends have explored the teaching methodology and other aspects in the classroom based on the sociocultural factors that shape the students' knowledge co-construction. Well, the research trends on teacher-student interaction in ELT context from sociocultural perspective have been explored in worldwide contexts such as Asian, African American, European, and US through several kind of qualitative and quantitative analysis. So the area they have examined are teaching methodology, teaching or learning experiences, teaching scaffolding, cognitive process, assessment, teacher agency, and professionalism. But then I also see the interaction in the classroom also happens in pre-service English teacher and teacher educators interaction in thesis supervision context. As well as the dialogical teaching in the classroom, dialogical thesis supervision, according to the literature review and previous studies, I found that relationship dynamics between the teacher as the research supervisor and students as a supervisee have mentioned several dimensions such as advice giving, power, and roles that create such agency, identity, distress, and results to students' challenges and barriers during their thesis supervision. These previous studies have been conducted through discourse analysis, conversation analysis, multimodal analysis, and thematic coding analysis. These research results leave an ample room for me to explore the positive psychological responses, while the previous studies have mentioned or highlighted the less fortunate ones. I would like to know how the dialogic teaching that the teacher create in the thesis supervision context and shared understanding developed, and also the well-being or positive psychological responses represented by the pre-service English teachers. All right, here is my detail of the novelty. I divide into two gaps. The first one from research context and theoretical gap, and the second one viewed from empirical gap. So based on the research context and theoretical gap, I found that the interaction explored is not only from kindergarten context, but also in the primary classroom, undergraduate degree, thesis or research supervision, but also between examiners who are involved in making assessment of essay of school students. The area they have explored also identifying dialogic teaching or principles, but also the socio-cultural aspects such as agency, identity, power, and roles. But then they also use threshold concept and tutoring problem solving theories to find out the results of the interaction viewed from the students. They rarely found or they rarely identified from the research supervisors or from the teacher perspectives. And the second empirical gap, I found that mostly the research on this kind of interaction commonly use thematic coding analysis, but I also find one research using mixed methods because they would like to find out the effectiveness of the dialogic teaching to in a student's outcome. Interestingly, several studies following the dialogic teaching interaction use sociocultural discourse analysis, where conversation analysis, thematic coding analysis are also integrated to corpus linguistic analysis. So the results was deeper than the previous studies or the previous studies in the last 10 years. In this, to fill the gap, this current study or my study use dialogic teaching principles since I would like to know or identify from the research supervisors, in this case, teacher educators perspective, how they deliver the material or the knowledge to the students. I also would like to understand the shared understanding developed, including the well-being, responses created or showed by the pre-service English teachers. Why I take thesis supervision context? Because it is imperative to examine this context because this kind of interaction will determine the successful research outcome from the students. While the previous studies use commonly thematic coding analysis, I integrate sociocultural discourse analysis and grounded theory analysis, in which I will explain more in research method section. So from this novelty, I draw 5 research questions. The first one, I would like to identify the linguistic choices that the participants, in which pre-service English teachers and teacher educators use in thesis supervision context. And having these linguistic choices used by the participants, I would like to identify the dialogic teaching framework. Also, I would like to understand the shared understanding developed between the participants and how the well-being experience occurred and why the factors, why this particular well-being experience occurred in this thesis supervision context. Well, here I would like to review some related literature according to my research questions. So to answer my research question, I use different theory and different data analysis, but still they are related to each other. In the first and the second question, I use the integration of corpus linguistic and thematic coding analysis, where I use Alexander's dialogic teaching theory. For following the results of research question number 1 and 2, I use the integration of conversation and thematic coding analysis using Howe's turn-taking codes theory. And for the research question number 4 and 5, I use thematic coding analysis using Longus and Holland's well-being theory. But then for the last question, I use grounded theory analysis because I would like to find the conceptualization between the dialogic teaching, the shared understanding and how it shapes or how the patterns will shape the well-being experience pattern. Okay, here a deeper literature review related to the theory I use. So the dialogic teaching is the way how teacher educators transform pedagogical content to a more dialogical way. As I explained before, that the themes that the previous studies commonly use only dialogic teaching principles, but rarely scholars use all the themes of Alexander's dialogic teaching theory. In this study, I use all the 8 themes of dialogic teaching theory, in which It highlights justification, principles, and repertoire in several interactive or several settings and talks. For the shared understanding, I use the Howey sub-themes, Howey theory, in which it only has one theme, but it has several sub-themes. Here, to know shared understanding between the participants, I will identify how the participants invite such a reasoning or elaboration or agreement or reference, but also using Jeffersonian transcription notation symbol for conversation analysis so that I can, identify non-verbal language that may contribute to the shared understanding between the participants. In well-being, for coding my data, I use Longo's main theory. So in Longo's well-being theory, there are 5 major themes, which are positive emotion, positive relationship, engagement, meaning, and accomplishment. I will use all the themes into in-depth interview in which I use the theory in the form of questions that I will use in gathering in-depth data for the pre-service English teachers. So here are my research methods. Since my study seeks to understand the social construction, shaping the dialogic teaching framework and the shared understanding in the dialogic thesis provision, my study follows interpretivism research paradigm, and I use phenomenology case study since I would like to understand the lived experience through critical interpretation. Pre-service English teachers and teacher educators are my research participants where I collect my data through participating observation and in-depth interview. Therefore, my data will be verbal dialogue and information from participants. As I explained before, that I will use different data analysis approach, corpus linguistic, thematic coding analysis, conversation analysis, and grounded theory analysis. In my study, I will provide 3 research significance, where I will provide foundational of professional learning literature or knowledge in new ways. Why in a new ways? Because in a case study or in a case study of a phenomena, there will always a possibility of sociocultural construction that will influence the theory occurred or the phenomena occurred. And then I will also, in my study, I will also present conceptual parameter between dialogic teaching and well-being construct, since there is only assumption, but there is no, or to the best of my knowledge, I have not found the dialogic teaching relation to the well-being construct. So here, by doing grounded theory analysis, I will present the conceptual parameter between the theories. And the result of my study, for sure, will initiate practical change on the best practices of dialogical interaction in EFL thesis supervision. Throwing these 3 research significance, I have, on my study, have 3 research contributions: theoretical, conceptual, and practical contribution. Let me highlight, restate my research paradigm. So because my study focusing on constructivist ontology, where social perspective and reality during the interaction will determine, or I mean, there is no fixed facts in which it implies that the participant's social interaction and action determine the reality. Also, why I use phenomenology case study? Because I focus on the lived dialogic interaction experiences by pre-service English teachers and teacher educators in EFL settings. And my study will characterize subjectively the participants' experience and how it gives meaning to the dialogic thesis supervision phenomena. And also because I use different data analysis approach, it critically and qualitatively describe, interpret, and understand the interaction so that the data will be deeper and hopefully gives a more or sharper data analysis results. Well, in my study, I use this inclusion criteria for my research participants candidate. For the teacher educators, those are those lecturers who are full-time regular professor or associate or assistant professor in Indonesian state or private university with at least 3 research publication in national accredited or reputable journals. But also they have to be qualified for lecture certification and contributed in ELT research area with the approval of the research advisory committee. Because of why? Because having this kind of qualification, I believe that they have knowledge related to the dialogic teaching and also capability in supervising the pre-service English teachers. For the age, it is ranged between 30 and 50 years old. And for the pre-service English teacher, at least the participants are in the 4th year, and also complete pre-service English language teaching and enroll thesis writing supervision program registered under the qualified teacher educators here. And the last one, the last inclusion criteria and the most important point is that they are willing to become my research participants. Well, this is my research procedure through research instruments and data analysis approach. Let me explain in detail. So in the first research question, since I would like to identify the linguistic choices, I collect the data through observation checklist in participating observation, where I come in the same room where the dialogic thesis supervision happened. So the data will be a transcript document from videotaped observation and checklist. I analyze the data using corpus linguistics with N512 support. For the second research question with the same instrument and data, I use thematic coding analysis using dialogic teaching theory. Then for the research question number 3, still in the same instrument and data, but I use different data analysis approach because I would like to understand the shared understanding developed between participants. I use conversational analysis with taking quotes and transcription notation symbols to understand a moment-to-moment basis that construct in within the dialogic interaction. For the research question number 4, I still use I use thematic coding analysis, but with different instrument here together to collect the data of a well-being experience from the pre-service English teachers. I use in-depth interview where I create the questions adapted from well-being theory. And the last research question, integrating the results from observation or transcript document from videotape of observation, I use well-being in-depth interview results to be coded or analyzed using inductive approach where I use crowd theory analysis. In this kind of theory analysis, I use 3 main stages. The first one is substantive coding, where I do open and selective coding. And then having categories emerge in the data, then I code the theoretical that may be in relate to the dialogic teaching and well-being, but I cannot, I also will come for any possibilities to another theory. Having theoretical codes, finally, I saw the theoretical codes because There will be many theoretical quotes, but I have to sort those kind of theoretical quotes by comparing their similarities, connection, and conceptual patterns that show the discovery of larger patterns. Well, that is all of my research proposal presentation. Your feedback will be very beneficial for my research and my data collection. Thank you.